I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody. How about that now? Did that not sound real?
Yeah.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about crows, crow hunting. And, you know, it's something, gosh, we probably don't think about a whole lot.
Ranks at the top and forgotten and overlooked.
Something tells me
would
we won't
agree.
just talk about crow hunting, but we'll probably talk about hunting another bird that a crow call is used for.
Yeah, they've got a relationship for sure.
There's
So-
zero chance we're going to get through this and not talk about turkeys.
No,
We just did it.
will. We will. So looking around the room, let me get this thing started, set off. Welcome, everybody, West Point, Mississippi. I'm looking at Toxie, who looks like he's very excited about this potential
Looked her
discussion.
deceiving, Bobby.
Yeah, and then looking next to him, we've got, sitting in Lanny's chair, we've got Neil Hayes.
Yeah.
And I'm very nervous.
Big shoes
Neil.
to fill. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so
Literally and figuratively.
both ways. Yep. Well, welcome here. How is fatherhood?
It's great. No sleep, but it's great.
Yeah.
Wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
It's
two,
a great-
two healthy boys. It's been quite a ride.
It's a great cardio workout for him, I can promise you.
Yeah. Dad gets his little fix. You know, he'll get him for a couple hours, and then he'll turn him back over. And you know, I don't know how you do it. He likes to be outside. He likes to ride tractors and bulldozers.
Imagine
and
having that
four-wheelers.
times two.
Yeah.
That's what I was
That's
gonna
what
say.
he had to deal with.
That's
Yeah,
why I was
yeah.
trained.
Well, in our defense, Daniel and I played together, so we occupied each other. So when there's one, you look to your parents to entertain you. When there's two, you entertain each other.
Good
So,
point.
yeah.
Good
He's
point.
been proving me wrong all his life. Here we go again.
All right. Well, Neil, the times I've seen you be a father and be in charge, you did a great job. So,
He does.
Thank you, Bobby.
He does.
so Dudley,
Yeah.
yeah, we're here.
How does it feel to be the only person in the room without ADHD?
I don't know. I'm losing my mind as we try to get all this.
Oh, we've
organized together.
converted him already.
So we've got, looking over on the television screen, we've got Sandy Brady. There he is. Sandy,
All right.
welcome.
Hey guys, how are you?
We're
Doing
great.
just great.
And-
Glad to have you.
Look, Sandy is a serious crow hunter. And when I was kind of searching around for somebody, I went down the road and I was told that he had killed like 413 crows one year. And I thought, okay, well, that's a pretty good amount of crows.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And so I reached out and started talking to him. He said, no, that was one day.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, he is our
Yeah,
guy.
we
Yeah,
got
hit,
it.
hit
It
the
didn't
horns.
take-
Hit the horns again for that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, Sandy, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into hunting crows the way you do.
Yeah. Let me say, who needs to go to Argentina somewhere if you can listen to him
Oh,
and get tips on crow hunting?
That's exactly right. And so first off, thank you for the opportunity to come on here with you guys. And I am a passionate, diehard crow hunter for sure. And you know, I was introduced to the sport of crow hunting back when I was just actually out of diapers. Cool little story is a little kid. My dad was a big bird hunter, big crow hunter. And there was one Saturday that he was going crow hunting. I couldn't have been much more than 5 years old. And he was not going to let me go. Now, I wasn't allowed to shoot at that time, but I was the picker-upper. So
Oh, yeah.
I would tag right beside him, and we was running and gunning, and they'd kill the crows, and I'd go pick them up and do all that. Well, he wasn't going to let me go, and I got a little upset about that, so I decided I was going to run away. I was like 5 years old. I can remember this, guys, like it was yesterday, and I packed my suitcase, and I went out that garage, and I went up the hill, and my dad raised bird dog setters and everything. And I went up there and I went in the dog lot. And that's where I ran away to because I couldn't go crow hunting at 5 years old with my daddy. And, you know, that made me think about this doing this podcast. I'm just grateful for the memories that it's done. I grew up in Reidsville, North Carolina. That's where I'm talking to you from today. and have been an avid hunter all of my life and been very blessed to go and do a lot of different things. There'll be a few people that'll be on here that say, I remember that guy. For a long time, I was with Tom Miranda in the early days of filming and doing instructional how-to videos. And we actually did one called The Crow Man, or The Crow Men, and that was with my dad and gentleman by the name of Tom Grogan and my brother and I. And we filmed that with Tom and actually sold a lot of those videos. And it's like, I think Neil had said, it's an overlooked sport. And to be honest with you, I want a lot of people to keep on overlooking it because it's so much fun to do. And it's always going to be some shooting. And like any kind of hunting and being successful with it, there's tricks to the trade to make you more successful. And hopefully I can share a few of those things today that somebody might pick up on.
That's great. I remember the first time me and some friends tried it. You know, we got out a little boom box and had some kind of a crow tape, and it worked for the first pass. It worked really well, and then the crows just immediately figured it out. And so it sounds like you've been a lot more successful than I have. So we'd love to learn some tricks for sure.
I remember, speaking of your first time going out crow hunting, I remember the first crow I ever killed. I was squirrel hunting with Dad, and squirrel hunting was kind of our earliest introduction to hunting and learning how to be a woodsman, because you deer hunt, you just kind of go sit in a box blind, and even today, like people go deer hunting and take their kids and they sit on their iPad or whatever. But you get out in the woods and you walk around squirrel hunting, you learn more. You learn what kind of tree this is or what kind of tree that is, or you see deer sign and all that kind of stuff. But we were squirrel hunting one day. I was 5 or 6 years old, and I told Dad I always wanted to kill a crow. It was just like top of my bucket list was to kill a crow. Well, he had gone off and left me sitting on a tree. He had to, I don't even remember what he was doing. He had to walk off like out of sight somewhere.
I think I went to get the truck.
Maybe he went to get the truck. And if you see any squirrels, just sit right here. If you see any, shoot them. So I was sitting there and a crow came. I'll never forget. And I was in the middle of the woods at West Lockard, and a crow came and lit on a limb like 10 yards away. And I grabbed my shotgun and I shot that thing off the limb. And Dad came running down through there. What'd you shoot? I held that thing up. I said, I killed my first crow, Dad. Screaming across the woods. And I made him mount it, and I still have that thing mounted today.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Oh, we need to put that up in the office,
Yeah, I'll bring it in here. I'd
or
love to, yeah.
in this room.
Yeah. I was as proud of that as my first deer
Oh, my gosh.
or anything. Yeah.
He was so proud, showing all his friends. So as soon as he could get in there,
Yeah.
show him his crow.
Killed a crow.
Well, that's another memorable experience, just like Sandy was talking about his first hunt.
So, Sandy, tell us when you think about crow hunting, let's kind of start at the beginning. What do guys need, and what do you got to have?
So, one of the main, a turkey can see pretty well. We all agree on that, don't we?
Oh, yes, sir.
A turkey can see pretty well. Well, guess what? A crow can see just as well as a turkey can. And by me saying that, you guys know anybody in the camouflage business?
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's pretty important, like number one, to pick a spot where you're going to call from to have good concealment. Little tricks to the trade are, some people just go out there and they'll stand in an area where they're in the open. I always, being from the South here, I like to find an opening having the sun to my back. And then I've got what's called a shooting hole. So I'm going to call these crows and I'm going to make them come where I want them to. And I'm not going to shoot until it's right to kill them. I don't push or rush my shots. There's a particular area that I want them. And I know that as long as they don't see me, then I'm going to be able to get them there. And I can tell real quick if I take somebody along with me on a hunt, if they're seeing something, because they'll get it 45, 50 yards and they'll flare real quick. Anybody that's ever gone out and tried to shoot crows, they run into that. So very important to be concealed very well. Camouflage gun is not something you have to have, but why not put all the advantages in your favor?
Yeah, we agree with that.
So you're saying glove, face mask, the works.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to know.
And one of the things that, I'll get guys that'll call me up and say, "Hey man, we went and we killed 10 or 11 crows and the boom box." I'm not a big boom box guy. Box Pro makes a wonderful electronic caller, but when you learn the vocalizations of a crow, you're able to talk to them just like we do to a duck, to a turkey, or any of the other animals. One thing that I find that most outdoorsmen out there, there's very few people that know what the vocalizations mean from a crow. They basically just think it's that ka ka ka, and they don't pay that much attention to it. But if you're sitting in the woods, you will hear a crow communicate with other crows or other danger animals with different tones and different sequence of how they do their call. Neil was talking about a little while ago, we are going to bring up the turkeys part of this, because people don't realize this. The number one call that is used, other than an owl locator call out there hooting for them, is a crow call. Mm-hmm. Most everybody that blows that crow call does not realize that they are out there blowing the danger signal of a crow. Now, I'm not saying that turkey will not gobble back to it. But if you know what the danger signal is, trust me, that turkey, when he hears that, he automatically knows that something has startled that crow, so it puts him on the defensive, if that makes any sense. But if you sound realistic and like a real crow and it's a contentment call, he's going to gobble back at it and he's going to have no idea whatsoever, and he's not going to be on alert. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah,
It does. And I've never thought about it. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Can't wait to hear that.
Well, I was just going to say, why don't we go through the vocalizations? What'd you have?
Well, no, I just finally realized why so many turkeys have eluded me over the years, and it's probably because I'm blowing the alert crow call. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't think of any other.
So it's funny that you said that. I get the opportunity to hunt with our buddy Matt Van Sice quite a bit, and Matt's learning how to call a turkey, as we all know. Mm-hmm. Right. He's getting better at it. Seems like each year, but we'll be hunting together, and he'll turn to me and he'll say, "Hit the crow call," even if we know that bird's within 60, 70 yards or whatever. And I said, "Why do you want me to do that?" And he said, "Because you sound exactly like a crow and it doesn't startle that turkey whatsoever." Whereas if you're with a buddy or whatever, they'll pull that call out and they'll just wail on it. And that turkey will not answer them. Whereas if you just do a contentment call of 3 to 4 caws to them, they're going to gobble right back at it, shot gobble back. And all they've done is gobble and go right back to strutting, and nothing has alerted them. So, and I've watched this over and over again with it. So it definitely helps to practice that crow call to sound like a real crow in the turkey woods also.
Yeah. I will say I feel like I've turkey hunted with a lot of people over the years, and I've never heard two people sound alike blowing a crow call. It's just one of those, I've heard a lot of people that sound a lot alike, yelping or whatever. But with a crow call, I've never heard two people blow a crow call exactly the same with the same cadence. It's always different. And everybody has their opinion on what it should sound like or what makes them, do you need to sound more realistic, or do you need to sound fake to make them shot gobble? I mean, I always want to sound as natural to the actual animal as possible. And Dad is probably, I haven't heard you blow a crow call yet, but, to this point, I would, it's hard for me to give him credit sometimes, but he is probably the best crow caller on a crow call that I've ever heard of all the people I've turkey hunted with. But I've never gotten into crow hunting, so I hadn't hunted with any experts on the crow call. But Dad is very good at sounding realistic on a crow call.
We'll see what Sandy says about that.
Yeah.
We'll have to get him blowing.
We got a call down there before he talks.
Hey, I understand you guys got a lot of crows down there in the Mississippi area.
There are.
Have gun, will travel. I love it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, let's start. Why don't you go through this contentment call you're talking about? What does it sound like?
Okay, a contentment call is basically 3 to 5 notes. It's not blasting out there. It's just about a 2-second of each note, and it's And that just lets all the other crows, any other animals that are in the area right there, know that everything is good. It's not basically a call that's calling other crows to come to them. It's just sitting there saying everything is good right here, kind of like a hen feeding down the field when she's sitting there and she's purring along. Everything is good and we're all content.
I never thought about all the other animals kind of keying off of other animal sounds like that.
Well, Dave Owens talks about it being just in tune with all of nature when you're not just paying attention to the turkeys, but paying attention to every bird and every sound that's being made when you're out in the woods, and you'll be a better hunter because of it.
One of the top is off the topic, but one of the crows will potentially alert you to where a turkey's strutting or something because they're so obnoxious. They'll badger one and then actually see them harass them so much they shut the turkeys up. But also one of my Harold Knight and David Hill first alerted me to that, and I started paying attention. It's like bow hunting or even turkey hunting, a blue jay. When you startle a blue jay, the sound they were the same thing. You hear one doing that distress call. It could be they're fussing at a deer that's coming, a buck or something might be walking towards you. Seems like they get more tore up about a buck, but then they also might be turkeys involved too. So to Neil's point is like just on your own, tuning into everything. I think crows could be a great indicator for people too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. All of nature, it all works together. Yep. And they live out there 24/7, 365
Well, it's
days
like
a
the
year.
blue jay. They're kind of
They
obnoxious.
notice when something's off.
Wouldn't you describe them as obnoxious? As far as that
Absolutely.
person, yeah. So they can't help but fuss about stuff, and so they might give something away for you quicker than another bird might.
Well, y'all rewind that what Sandy just played and put it in your brain so you can use it.
So what other calls are there, Sandy?
So the danger call, everybody out here that's watching, most all of us are turkey hunters that are listening to this today also. And think about when you walk up on a field or you walk up and you startle a crow. When he flies off, when they get up and they fly off right there, that's the danger call right there. Most people don't put two and two together, but it's 3 to 7 notes at a real high rate and real fast. And they're telling everything else in the area, something just happened and it's not right here. So I guess all you guys can relate to what I'm saying. You walk up on a food plot or something like that, and you don't know that the crows, they see you and then they fly off. Can you relate to what they're sounding like? It's this sound right here.
Yeah.
Man,
And
that
they're
sounds
telling
good.
everything else out there that something is not right. And that's the same call that most of the turkey hunters use when they're trying to shock gobble a turkey.
Guilty.
Yeah, it is. Wow, that's interesting. So as a crow hunter, you work on being able just to talk to the crows just like you would if you were calling ducks or calling turkeys. So how many different calls are in your vocabulary to them?
Oh gosh, I would say that, I do it in scenarios. So I'm one of these guys, I'll start off with something just being a contentment call to see if I get an answer, not trying to call them in. And then I'll get louder as I go along. So I'm going to say that there's probably 10 different vocalizations. And it would take somebody like you guys that know different vocalizations like in a turkey to be able to pick up on those. Some of them are going to sound the same, but to the crow, they know what every single one of them is. This I'm going to start this off right here as a scenario. Just say Toxie and I we put out 8 or 10 decoys in the edge of a plowed field. We haven't heard any birds in the area. We're running and gunning. We've got our setup right there. We walk back, everything is good. Sun's not in our face. We got a good shooting hole. The one thing that I see guys that aren't crow hunters they can get the crows to come to them, but when they come to them right there, they put themselves in a position that they can't shoot. So it's so thick, they can't shoot above them. The crows are close enough to kill, but they didn't think about that shooting hole. So that's a very important thing to think about when you're setting up for the crows. But this is the scenario, just like we were going out, and this is how I would start it out, and then I would break from the calling, and I would listen.
Sandy, what kind of call are you blowing there?
So this one right here, you had mentioned at the beginning of the thing. So this is one of Mike Batty's, and I use, there's a lot of great crow calls out there, but I'll have to say is when it comes to realism and easy to blow, Mike, and he's got a new setup for these that's just coming out, and it's worth the money. These are bad to the bone. It's a Mike Batty champion crow call.
Yeah, they sound great.
I highly recommend, if you're going to be serious about crow hunting, look into it. It's worth the money, and they're easy to blow.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Mike's a legend.
Yeah,
we're aware of that.
We wanted to understand what you were blowing, so go ahead.
Yep. Okay. So this is Toxie and I are sitting there, and because Neil said that he's the best caller ever, we're going to sit there, and I mean,
I did not say that.
Woods, they're probably coming already.
I said he
actually
was the
did
best
not
that
say
I
that.
know, but
Don't
I
be
also
calling
don't
me
know a
out.
whole lot of good.
I
crow
bow to
callers.
you in silence. I promise you.
Yeah.
Well, this is the scenario where we're going to start out, and then when I break, I'll tell you what I'm going to do next. Okay.
Okay.
So. So what I've done right there is I've let them know that there are crows that are content, and then I've given them a come here call at the same time, and I've elevated it with a little bit of excitement. And that excitement, crows that are further. You can call a crow from almost a mile away, believe it or not, if you don't have any wind.
Okay.
That crow can hear. He's like I said, he can see like a turkey, and he can hear like a turkey. And if turkeys would come like crows would, it wouldn't be good for the turkey population. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The crows, they respond back and forth. I don't really know of any other interaction with a bird that flies that you can call back and forth like a crow. Now that you think about it.
Well, I'm
even goose hunting.
I'm thinking out loud here, and you may get a crow from a mile away to respond. Well, that crow may start calling itself, and there may be a crow 3/4 of a mile past that hears that one, and then
that's yes.
So
exactly right.
Ask you a question real quick too along those lines. We went, cousin, I took a guy, and he long time ago, at the first one I ever heard of, did like crow hunting videos, like 8 tracks video, whatever, cassettes.
Yep.
And so maybe 30 years ago, and the name of them was Eating Crow, and I apologize, I can't remember his name. But
I know exactly what you're talking about.
He would he swore up and down that all this stuff, he didn't believe in the tapes. He was actually, my memory serves me right, aligns perfectly with everything you're saying. But he said, you can help yourself out a ton if you be sure and kill the first one. Because if you don't kill the first one and shoot at them and they go back, they'll just mess up your whole setup. You might as well pick up and go somewhere else. Is there some truth to that?
So to me personally, I call that a myth.
Oh, okay.
But most pro hunters, that's exactly what they think. If you don't kill the first one, they call it the scout. Well, the closest crow is the one that's going to come first.
Yeah.
Because they're competitive. And they're going to try to beat the others there. It's kind of like when you get 3 gobblers running across a field to a decoy, the closer they get, the faster they get to that decoy to compete with one another. And a crow's the same way. Well, if we're calling and those crows are calling back and we shoot and we miss that first crow, well, he's doing the danger call as he's going away. But these other crows, we're still calling. They're coming in, so they really don't pay any attention to the excitement. So me personally, I say that it's a myth, and we kill a lot of crows after missing that first one, if you know what I mean.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So you're saying it might be helpful, but certainly not essential.
Not essential by any means, no.
It sounds like to me common sense, like how well you're hitting your setup. Do you have some decoys that can see easily that take them not seeing you probably still the most critical thing to making them close the deal, I would think, from what you're telling us.
That's exactly right. And it's like anything else. You've got to be where that crow is willing to come. So a lot of people say, well, what do you mean by that? So I love hunting in pine trees. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to sit there and hunt in a pine thicket where if Toxie's on one side and I'm on the other side, we don't want to have this big oak that's 30 feet taller than the pines in between the two of us, because naturally they're not going to come to that oak. They're going to skirt it right or left. That's just what they do. Whereas if everything is pretty natural and pretty even, they're going to fly over. They can pinpoint that sound just like a turkey can. And they're going to do it. And as long as they don't see you, they're going to circle and then they're going to dive and they're going to come in. And I call it floaters. I mean, if you get on a good shoot in a good hole, you might hit 40 in a row without missing by picking your shots. And I take people that have never done it before and they're like, how can you hit them like that? And I said, because I've done the preparation to make sure that, and I've done it for a long time. I've shot them for 50 years, and you guys know that makes a difference when you're shooting at something. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to put the bird where I want him in order to kill him.
So you just confirmed you've never taken Bobby, at least. That's for
sure. So what size shot and gauge? What are you shooting?
Okay, so great question. So a lot of guys will go out and they'll hunt with a dove load or whatever, and that's a mistake. Crow's a big, tough bird. So I'm always shooting 1 1/4 ounce. I like to shoot 6 and 7.5. Federal used to make this awesome pigeon load that was 1 1/4 ounce. It was called a pigeon load, and my dad bought them by the cases, like 15 or 20 at a time, and they were an awesome crow shell. And so you couldn't find the 7.5 anymore. So 1 1/4 ounce number 6s.
So once you guys start shooting, are you still blowing the call and talking to them? Do you change your vocalization, or are you letting them know, hey, it's okay, you're hearing all this shooting, but there's no problem? What are you saying to them?
So what we'll do is, if we're in an area where we know there's a lot of crows that are using, and there's two different aspects of crow hunting. One of them's a run and gun. If you've got a lot of different properties to go hit, just say, me and Bobby are going to get up tomorrow morning, and this is not migration season for crows right now. They've got their young, their resident crows. So he's got 5 farms that he can hunt. I've got 5 farms that I can hunt. So we're going to go run and gun. So we're going to start off at Bobby's place in the morning, and we're going to call. We're going to stay there anywhere from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, anything that's in that area, if we hadn't called it in and shot at it, they're not within hearing distance. We're going to get in the truck, and then we're going to go to the next place. And the next place needs to be at least a mile or more away from it. And that's the run and gun aspect. That's typically not where we kill the big numbers. The big numbers usually come from mid-November to the end of February when crows start migrating. And I'm sure back there, and you guys got a lot of crop ground, there's got to be times in December and January where you're riding by a field and you might see 200 to 500 crows out in it. Do y'all see that much down there that time of year?
I would say we see them in the fields that thick. Y'all can chirp in on that. But I can remember distinctly many times sitting in a deer stand or being out in like December and January when it's cold too, and just seeing, 10, 15, 20-minute long migrations. And there weren't tight groups like ducks or geese or stuff like that. It was just randomly crows constantly flying where you could never look up and not see 6, 8, 10 just for 20, 30 minutes straight. So it was 500 to 800 in this giant migration, but it was kind of weird because they weren't packed very tight. I've seen that quite a bit.
So that right there, what you just described, is exactly where I'm going to go with this So if we can find where those crows are going, so if it's after lunchtime, they're going back to wherever they're roosting. A crow, as long as he has food, he'll stay in an area up to 2 to 3 weeks without moving further north, going back up north on the migration end of this. And if you can find that field where they're going, it's Katie by the door, bro. I've got 200 crow decoys. It's redneck duck hunting at its finest. You get the right setup with everything. You set those decoys out. You don't go with 3 or 4 boxes of shells. You go with 2 or 3 cases of shells. You don't go with a big crew of people. You go with 3 guys that aren't going to compete with one another, that can shoot, and they'll take that killing shot. And you will sit there in the morning right after it's like I said, it's duck hunting, except these are coming to the call, and they're going to come to that flock of decoys right there. And that's where we kill the 300 and 400 numbers when we find places like that. And believe it or not, a crow year after year after year will use the same fields as long as they have crops. So once you've located those and been able to be successful, they're going to be somewhere in that area within a week or 2 of when they were there last year. That's something for guys to keep in mind. And you can go out there and you can have just an absolute blast.
So are there crow flyways?
Yes.
So is there's?
It's not water oriented though, I don't think.
So yeah. How would you go about understanding those?
I would be guessing on that one because I don't understand it either, but I have watched it. Just outside of Reidsville, here's a town called Greensboro, and there's a roost site behind the Costco there. And there'll be about 30,000 crows starting in November all the way through February that use behind that Costco. So I'm the guy that the cops actually came one day to me. I pulled up in Sportsman's Warehouse parking lot, and I always carry a crow call with me everywhere I go. And I mean, there were crows everywhere. I had over 1,000 crows. I'm talking diving down in the parking lot, and I'm just standing outside the vehicle right there in it. And somebody called the cops saying that I was causing a ruckus or whatever. The cop loved it. It was a lot of fun, but they would not leave. And I was within a quarter mile of their roost site. As far as their flyway, I don't know what determines that, but one of the ways that I would be successful on some of those hunts is I would actually go one morning and watch to see which direction the majority of the crows would fly off the roost. And it would take them hours to leave the roost, that many birds. And then I would go and drive in that direction, sometimes as far as 10 miles. And it may take me a couple of days to do it, but I would find out where the majority of those crows are going. And believe it or not, crow hunting is a great way to obtain permission for other types of hunters, because there's not a farmer out there that does not want to get rid of his crows. And there's not a whole lot of competition as far as guys going out there wanting to kill them.
They probably kind of giggle when you ask them, like, crows? Sure, come on.
Yeah, well, they always say, you know, what are you going to do with them when you get them? And I look, I say, well, I didn't get this big by eating steak, you know. And they say, oh, do you really eat them? I said, no, I don't. But I actually do have some people that do eat crows, and I'll take 100 or so to them every year. One of the coolest things that I had a guy that he was a big fly fisherman. And he said, I will take every crow that you can kill. So there's some type of pin feather that's on a crow that they cannot get over in New Zealand, over there. And he would tie these flies and send them to New Zealand. And apparently they were just sought after. And it would be with these particular pin feathers of a crow. So there is some good uses for a crow, but my ADD is kicking in right here. One of the things I do want to touch, people ask this all the time. Will a crow mess with a turkey? Will it mess with a turkey nest? And I can personally tell you that I have watched it physically with my eyes. right here in my backyard. Watched a hen nest, watched her every single day, was just mesmerized with the fact of how she could disappear in low grass, and watched her the whole time. And I was able to sneak over one night and actually shine a flashlight and see her on the nest, so I knew exactly where it was. Well, it was getting about time for them to hatch. And sure enough, here comes 3 crows. They're sitting right up above, and boom, down. So she's fighting off one crow. The other crow comes and busts every single egg that was in there. And if you think about it,
you just made a lot of these listeners lifetime crow hunters now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, when you kill a crow, you're saving a turkey. And I know it's a predator. Think of it like a coon and everything else. So I guess a month and a half ago, maybe a month or whatever, I'm coming home from church, and right up the road from me, a hen crosses the road, and she's got 5 or 6 poults. And you know how we get excited when we see that. And so I went past, and I turned around because they were going in a tobacco field, and the tobacco wasn't 4 inches tall. Here we go, and my wife's with me, and we turn around, we come back right there, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. I actually pulled out my phone and videoed it. Crow comes out, wham, catches a poult, kills it 30 feet from the vehicle, and sits there and eats it. And I've got video of the actual crow eating the poult. I wasn't videoing, when it came down, I was driving the car.
Man.
And I watched that right there. So not only are they nest raiders, but they're after the young also when they're fresh and can't get away. So
raising turkeys,
there's no telling how many turkeys we lose each year because of crows.
Well, we talk about avian predators towards turkeys all the time, but we never really talked about crows.
No.
I mean, obviously, everybody knows hawks and eagles can be terrible predators for them, but it is remarkable to raise a turkey to a full-grown stage when you think about all the ground predators, all the nest predators. There's got to be 10 or 12 at least species of animals that are full-blown predators to turkeys.
Oh yeah,
fire ants, it's just,
Hogs,
it's a miracle.
It is
one of nature's greatest miracles to raise turkeys.
I'm telling you, everything's out to get them. Maybe some of that points to what happened to quail. I do remember the very first research I ever remember back from the 60s starting was 2 people, Dr. Dan Speake from Auburn and Dr. George Hurst, one of my favorites. And he worked with Dad, and we did stuff together anyway. But they had done for lack of a better word, they had a permit, the poison nest research to see exactly what killed and ate eggs. And so by far coons and possums were number one. But I still remember, especially with Dr. Speake from Auburn, crows were next at, eating eggs, destroying eggs.
And I would bet that they didn't have a live hen sitting on that nest. But if there was a live hen sitting on that nest, it may have attracted more crows.
Probably.
Because they're so smart and they detect the movement and the hen noises, and then they could hone in. So if you're just having a fake nest with eggs, that may even skew the results a little bit to where crows are even worse.
Yep. They could be. I mean, you got to think a crow has the advantage of flying overhead and covering more ground, and they have better eyesight, I'm assuming, than a possum or a coon.
Sure.
Yeah.
No question. Finding them,
their skills are a lot sharper than.
Another reason why this habitat conversation, you want that early successional that's got some canopy to go along with the cover, because at least that helps some from the avian predators.
Mm-hmm. So, Sandy, in preparing for this, everything I read just talked about how smart crows were. And there were some articles that were pointing out that their brain weight to their body ratio was the same as a human, but it was more than any other bird. Are they as smart as these people are saying they are?
They're every bit of it. And the reason I say that, so growing up, my dad was in the oil business. He was an Amoco distributor in Rockingham County. And we had 2 pet crows, one named Amacrow and one named Atlas, because he sold Atlas tires. and there was a storm that came through, and it blew down a pine tree, and it had a nest, and we came across, this was back before they had a season on crows. You could hunt them year round. We came across that, and so we got 2 crows. We raised them with a bottle feeder, and they lived in our house. And when I'd say live in their house, we would open up a sliding glass door, and my dad would go out on the patio and he'd say, "Ah, Ka, Amacro, Atlas." And here they'd come down. We lived on a golf course, and they'd come down the golf course and they'd land on each shoulder, walk inside right there, and they'd go up on the cornice. My mom hated them because they would poop all over. And but we were pretty well known. Those crows loved shiny objects, and this is 45 years ago, and cigarette smoking, everybody did it. We lived in a cigarette factory town for American Tobacco Company, and the golfers would be coming around on the first fairway right there, and the crows would see the golf carts, and when they'd get out to hit, they would wait till they'd get out to hit, and they would fly down into the golf cart, and they would take a whole pack of Lucky Strikes, and then they would fly up into a tree right there, and they would pull them out one at a time and break them and drop them on the ground. This happened 50 or 60 times. If you left something silver or whatever, we probably ended up with 5 or 6 watches that they would bring back to the house. It just, their mind was attracted to that. So were they smart? Absolutely.
Is it true?
What's that?
Well, I was going to ask, is it true that like 4 people can walk out into a blind and 3 can leave and they know that there's still 1 left out there?
Crow's a smart bird. Very smart bird.
I kind of want to get back to some of this hunting chat. And so I've just always, I've only done it one time, and we shot a few, but, we couldn't get them to come back and that kind of thing. So let's just say you've got a scenario. Does your shooting scare them? I mean, do you have to change setups? Like when you're hunting this migration and you've got a bunch of birds in the area and they hear the shooting, tell us a little bit how you go about, continuing to shoot them all morning.
So they're going to continue to pile in all morning. So as I had told you earlier, when I watch a roost site, and these birds that I'm shooting migration wise, they're roosting somewhere and there's a lot of them. Well, they don't all go out the same direction, but they're leaving throughout the morning. So I know they're coming in that general direction, and they're going to hear us. And when they start coming to the call, then they're going to see our decoy set up, which is pretty impressive. I'll usually put 150 out.
Okay.
That are there. I'm not a big guy as far as using spinners with that. Now I will use flappers, where the wings are going up and down, where it looks like a real motion, for those occasionally. And those birds will come in there and you shoot, you kill them. The ones that you don't kill, they fly off. But what you've got more birds that are filtrating, coming off of that roost, that are coming to that big gang. And what they're seeing is all the decoys that are out there. So they have no idea that they're not real.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
So they're not really, the ones that get away aren't going to go back and tell their buddies to stay away from that decoy spread.
That is exactly right, because they're not resident crows.
Okay.
Those crows are on one mission, and that mission is to feed. And when they get shot at a particular place, they're going to fly off. They're not going to go fly up in a tree like a resident crow in the early season does. They're going to fly off and go find somewhere else to feed.
Okay. And so are you going out and picking up the dead crows? Or, do they flare off the dead crows in your decoy spread? Or?
That's a great question. And you brought up something that is and I still hadn't figured this out, but it happens all the time. So if they fall in the decoys right there, no, because it's just another black dot and it looks good. And when you add another 100 to 200 on top of what you got right there, it looks like a big old pile of crows out there.
Okay.
But what will happen a lot of times is you'll shoot one and he's a cripple, and he'll fly out there 70 yards out in the field. And believe it or not, those crows that are coming, they're hearing you calling, you've got 200 decoys sitting right here, and you've got one that's 75 yards out there by himself. They'll go to that one. Time and time again, they'll go to that one, and sit there and circle on him. So when that happens, I'm pretty adamant about going out there and dispatching him and getting him back in the decoy pile.
Okay.
I have a question. Do you hunt with a dog?
Occasionally we do, and I'm a big duck hunter.
Yeah, I've always heard that a wounded crow will peck at their eyeballs. The dogs.
They will. It's like a sandhill crane, but it's a great way to work a dog as far as discipline wise, of just making him sit and heel and watch what's going on. And you can pretty much tell when that crow, when he folds, whether he's dead or not, and send him on that.
All right, guys, we don't know what happened, but we just had some kind of audio issue with Sandy. But Richie has fought, and we have him back, and hopefully we're on a different connection, so that if it sounds a little bit different, that's what's going on. But hey, Sandy, I wanted to ask you. So the crow, when you think about them, when you know they're kind of associated with bad luck or maybe even death and thieves and they're all these different things. But people just don't think very highly of crows. But the more you talk about hunting them, this sounds like a great way to get young people kind of an introduction to wing shooting or how to behave in a duck blind without having all the cold weather and wind and water. And it's a great intro to them.
Oh, without a doubt. That's why I call it redneck duck hunting. You know, you don't have to put on the waders. Everything's pretty much the same. Everybody likes to call a duck and quack and chatter to them, and they turn and see those orange feet coming in. The only thing you're missing is you got black feet, black wings, and a black head coming in at you. So I think, and it's sporty shooting. I don't know of anything that's any more sporty shooting at something that's real than crow hunting, because they're diving at you. Some of them are up there at 45 yards. Just all kinds of different various shots that a crow provides for you.
So, Sandy, you told us what you like shooting number sixes, maybe in 7.5 from time to time. But what choke are you using? Modified?
I always shoot a modified choke, and I'm one of these guys that's, I guess I'm old school, but I shoot a modified pretty much at everything. Duck hunting. Turkeys, no, but I mean, anything, if I'm sporting clay shooting or whatever, that's what I shoot. I think it's a great, versatile, all around choke.
What about distance with those rounds? I mean, do you typically stop at 35 or so yards, or what's your limit?
Well, it's kind of like, the guy sitting there shooting TSS. If you know what your gun will do, you can do some pretty remarkable things, but I don't go out there promoting anybody to shoot at something way out there. I have killed crows at 65 yards, 70 yards with 1.25 ounce number 7.5s, and people will say, well, why are you shooting at them that far? And I say, because that sucker won't come in no closer, and I didn't have any other crows that were circling me. And it's just, my dad would always call it trick shots. And it's just a matter of knowing what your gun would do and being able to lead that bird and do it. And a lot of times, if you take somebody with you that's never experienced that, you pull a few of those off, they look at you, and all of a sudden you're a hero in their shooting world, when all it is just a little bit of experience and knowledge. Doesn't happen every time. But so you can reach out there and tag one pretty good ways.
Okay, well, I've got a silly question and then more of a serious question. Have you ever killed a crow that had any jewelry, like a banded crow or anything?
I have not, but I have seen pictures. There's a gentleman. His name is Bob Arison. He is a legend in the crow hunting world, and he's probably got 15 to 20 banded birds and probably 10 or more coloration birds that are mounted. I'd say that he's over the 1 million mark when it comes to numbers of crows that he's killed.
Goodness gracious. Where is he out of?
Yeah, he is out of Texas now, and I think Bob's 70, 78, 79 years old.
Oh, my goodness. That's a lot of
He'll
crows.
probably end up hearing this, but we were hoping to hunt together. Him and my dad would communicate about crow hunting quite a bit, but we never got the opportunity to share sunrise together and shoot crows. But he was a mouth caller, and when Bob went to crow hunt, he went with 4, 5, 6 cases of shells. Now he would go to the flyways, Kansas, Nebraska, up in Pennsylvania in the Amish country where there's 1 million or more birds on a roost. And he would watch them fly out, and he'd go obtain permission. The guy knows what he's doing. And he was very eccentric about it. He wouldn't just go hunt with anybody. You had to know what you were doing. And if your shells would fall outside of the blind and be laying on the ground out there, he would stop you from hunting and make you pick those shells up so the sun wouldn't reflect off the brass. He was pretty serious, almost too serious. But he killed a lot of birds, so I give the man credit.
Yeah, that's what it takes to be really good at something, is to be very detail-oriented.
Attention to detail, yep.
Is there another hunting scenario with calling you can go over?
Yeah. So a lot of times what'll happen is you'll be sitting there and you've got crows that aren't going to commit after you've called for a while. And then that's when we go into what's called an excited. We've given them all the basic stuff, which have sounded realistic, but then we're going to double up. And that means that I'm going to take 2 callers at once and get real excited with them. And I'll step away from the phone right here to do that real quick. But this would be a scenario that we've killed a bunch of birds already and the birds aren't finishing. So what can we do that's different to finish? And what this is this like Topsy had said earlier, crows fighting a blue jay, making noise to alert that something else is going on. And remember, a crow's really curious. And when they hear this call, most of the time they're going to commit and come in. So this excited, curious call is what it is. I don't know how that sounded through our technology right there, but that's what you call getting real excited.
Yeah, I'd like to go on record and say Dad's the second best crow caller I know.
For sure.
That sounded really good, Sandy.
I'm kind of embarrassed. My son, but it tells you just doesn't know many people.
I don't get out much.
Oh, don't get embarrassed.
No, so that was amazing. But that was. Just for everybody out there, what I just took from that is like that was very excited, almost like the alarm. The difference is you stayed with it for much, much longer than just a couple of blasts and I'm out of here. So, there's a lot of excitement in that, but he stayed with it for so long to put up a fuss.
You're exactly right, Toxie. That you hit the nail on the head with it. It's basically the alarm call, just a little bit louder and faster. And it's continuous, whereas that alarm call is just this.
Yeah.
And then it's over with as far as the crow goes. I think Neil was saying earlier, no 2 crow callers in the woods sound the same, and he's dead on that. And I can pick one up immediately, and so can you guys, and know that it's not a real crow. And this is what that real crow does not sound like, and it's this. That's just blowing a crow call. There's no
soul in it.
There's
no
no
life in it.
That's but that's actually better than most that I hear. Even then,
Kind of flat.
Well, and so here's this is air. This is taking and growling, meaning
It's usually
like you're growling at somebody. So it's the same thing, but just a light growl to it.
Yep.
it's crazy, and it goes back to any kind of animal trying to imitate them as diaphragm air and not just blowing air.
That's right.
Same thing
Like duck calls
no matter
too.
what, duck calls, turkey calls.
You don't
no
just
matter what
blow
you're
it
doing,
like that.
It's
It's
all always diaphragm air.
Yeah.
If you can master using your diaphragm, you can master any kind of call.
Well, he's
You may
cutting
not
that-
master it, but you can do it.
If
well.
you listen to him, he's cutting that note off too. He's not just openly just blowing until he runs out of breath type of.
I will say this, it's like anything else that we do out there in the outdoors to be more successful, the more realistic that you sound. And of course, you got to practice it. And practicing, you've got to practice the right way. And there is no better way to learn to sound like a crow than going out and just sitting and listening to what crows sound like. And a lot of times you can get them vocal by not trying to just call them in, but get them started a little bit and then just shut up, because they'll fly up in a tree and they'll go through all of their vocalizations. And when you can sit there and say, okay, that's kind of cool. I will actually go still to this day, and I've been at it a long time. I'll record them on my iPhone.
That's what I was going to just say. Yep. So I've noted a lot of duck calling, turkey calling. I mean, the really, really super good ones. Of course, they're practice all the time to pay attention, but they tend to have a musical ear. Like Mark Drury, you wouldn't believe. He's incredible with he can make sounds almost not that good, but almost with his natural voice. But he's got that musical ear for it. So I would just suggest for people, instead of, I'm kind of sitting here not trying to criticize a hunt with a lot of people. They don't sound like a crow when they're turkey hunting, but I don't know that they can really tell. So get your iPhone, what I'm getting at, and this works great for turkey calls, duck calls. Get your iPhone, put it on video and set it over there, 5-10 yards from you, and then blow your calls and then play it back for yourself. It makes a huge difference in knowing what you actually sound like to critters,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. I will say this. If a guy will learn how to sound like a crow, he doesn't have to be perfect, but if he can learn to sound like a crow, he's going to end up killing more turkeys. And you say, well, why is that? Because you're going to use that crow call in situations that aren't going to just make them gobble. A lot of times they'll gobble and walk in the other direction if you've used that danger call. They'll gobble back to it, but they know that something wasn't quite right and that a real crow doesn't make that noise that close. But if you can be realistic and blow that crow call and that bird's 50 yards away from you just over the ridge, that could be the thing that differentiates the fact if you just killed that bird or that bird's on the other side of the ridge now going in the other direction, by knowing how to blow a crow call the right way.
So
to be an advantage in the killing.
Yeah, I heard you talk earlier too. I want to circle back to this about going on these crow hunts, and you would actually light out right at daylight and begin hunting as soon as it started to break daylight. I heard you say, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So for a long time now, I've actually noticed, and I'm one of the ones more than anybody I know, I will blow that crow call in the first light when everybody else kind of shudders like, no, it's got to be an owl call right now. I mean, if just everybody pay attention next time. From the not maybe black dark, but by the time a turkey would gobble, there are crows crowing every morning. Mm-hmm. So I have had as good or better luck. I blow my crow call right off the bat. It's my favorite thing besides the turkey calls. And what I love about the crow call is that it is a natural sound up in the morning. And I hate to locate turkeys with a turkey call because, like I always say when we're hunting, the meter starts ticking immediately. You locate one by him gobbling on his own, or with a crow call, you've got time. You can pick a good spot. You might could even make a little blind. You're not in a big rush necessarily. But if it's up in the morning and you hit one cutting at him, you better hit the dirt. You don't have time. So, and I'll say this too: if you blow a crow call and spook the turkeys, and we hunt primarily on our own places, our own lease, so we're trying to light foot around on it all the time, and not pressure's a big deal, and even the biologists have proven that. So, what I'm getting at, I think blowing a crow call to locate one does not disturb one nearly as bad as calling with your turkey calls and then spooking one. So I'm a big fan of the locator call, especially the crow call. It's my number one thing outside of my turkey calls.
Sandy,
okay, that's it.
Good
Yes,
stuff.
sir.
Sandy, what should we be asking you? What is there any questions, anything about crows we need to know we hadn't touched on or covered?
The thing I want to, hey, just get outside and have fun. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Great advice.
You learn by doing, and make sure that whatever you do, you have fun doing it. And don't forget, it's a privilege and an honor every time we're able to step foot out in the woods and to be able to enjoy God's creation.
That's awesome.
So, that's one of the things that we forget about. Not on purpose, it's human nature, but every time I step out there, man, I am blessed. Whether I hear a bird or anything, I don't take it for granted. The older we get, I have learned that every day is a true blessing and a gift.
Hey, one other question I had was, is there any particular things that people that have never gone before might need to be sure and be aware? A regulation? Is there a limit in some states? I know there's actual seasons now. Is that everywhere? What are the things that need to be mindful of not to make a mistake on?
So, every state is it. When I grew up, there were zero regulations on crows. You could kill them
right,
in
me too.
any way, shape, or form. And so, like in North Carolina now, our season came in June the 5th. Came in June the 5th and goes out February the 28th. We're allowed to hunt them on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays.
Wow.
There's
Never
no shot size or anything like that. You got to have permission to be on the land that you're on. There is no limit. You are allowed, you could actually bait a field for crows if somebody wanted to go to that trouble and shoot crows over it. So there's no regulation. Every state is different, so you'll need to check your game laws on each one of them. And I'm not aware of anywhere that has a actual limit on them, but I'm sure that there are some states that you probably can't hunt past lunchtime.
Yeah, so the main thing you're saying, wherever you are, check that state. And don't take it for granted. You can just go check
regs. Whether you can have your plug in or out,
right.
All that kind of stuff.
They're considered a migratory bird, so they do fall under some regulations. But I think Mississippi, we can hunt them November through February, and there's no limit here. So I tell you, Sandy, we've learned a lot. We've learned about, when I think about, I've always wondered if people ate them, and I think you kind of answered that question. That
somewhat.
You know a few people, but most people probably don't.
I've actually tried them, and I will have to tell you that it's a matter of just getting over that mental part of it. And when I didn't know that I was eating crow, no pun intended, when I was actually eating it, and it was in a salad, and it was excellent, and it was at a wild game dinner. And it was revealed after the fact that this was a crow salad. And, of course, it tasted great going down. But once it was still that mental aspect. But, crow eats a lot of grain, but he also eats a lot of dead animals on the road. So, you're doing it's a predator. It's kind of like a coyote. And just look at it this way. You can feed the coyotes, the foxes, and those things with those animals. And my number one reason for hunting crows is, number one, I grew up as a kid doing it. I love the interaction, but every crow that I'm able to shoot out of the sky now, I feel like there's an opportunity that there might be a poult somewhere that survives because of it.
That's pretty interesting. I really have to think that your thoughts on the eggs, and they're sitting in that tree, watching a hen come back and forth. They're going to figure it out.
Oh yeah,
they are going to figure it out. That's just something we need to pay attention to. We'll talk to Mike Chamberlain about that to get his thoughts on it. So, I'd always heard that prior to Alabama, where I grew up, being where you could legally bait, I always heard that the game wardens would kind of watch for crows, listen for crows, and that's how they knew to find bait pods.
Correct, they do. Yep. They do that even now.
Yeah. So, hey, look, Sandy, if you're still there, we want to ask you a trivia question. And
okay.
So if you get this trivia question right, you've got a chance to win a podcast T-shirt and a bag of Biologic Endurance radishes. And one of our listeners has already won just because they left us a review. But I'm going to turn it over to Richie now. So pay attention, Sandy, and you're going to have a tough question coming your way.
I'm paying attention.
Today's trivia is brought to you by Sheffield Financial. Fuel your Gamekeeper projects with financing for power sports, outdoor power equipment, and trailers. Begin your next conservation adventure at SheffieldFinancial.com. All right, so Pause 1997 is who left a review, spelled with a V. Left a nice review there for us. And our question is...
And what did they win?
They won a $50 gift certificate to Gamekeeper Butchery.
That's a pretty big deal. They could get an alligator. Toxie, they could get some elk meat. Gamekeeper Butchery. That's a pretty $50.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Vandy was very generous there. So if you're that Pause guy, just get in touch with us and we'll get Vandy to send you that gift certificate.
Yeah. So all right. So our question here. So is there an event called a crow funeral?
Yes.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. Can you tell us about it, Sandy?
So I have two twin brothers, Jim and John Sloan, that are Native American. And we were going crow hunting one day, and one brother said to the other brother, we're not going. We're not going to do a crow funeral because we're Native American and we may kill one of our spirits. And they were serious. I mean, they that's their belief in all of that. And so they went on to explain to me that when a crow dies, other crows will die and will gather around. This is in natural causes. And they will gather around and they will actually mourn the death of another crow. Now, that's not coming from scientific. That's coming from my buddies that are Native American that explained that to me. And that was the first time that I had heard of a, quote, crow funeral, and that's what they called it, was a crow funeral.
Yeah. And what I read was that scientists can't confirm, but many, many people had said that they had seen crows, something happened to crows, and other crows would come and hang around it for a few hours. And that's called, there's actually a term on the internet called a crow funeral, and that's what it's referring to. Well, Sandy, did I understand right? One year you killed as many as 8,000 crows. That's a lot of crows.
So actually, as I've gotten older right here, so I will set my goal in November to probably go after a number of 2,000. It used to be 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 between November and February. So I'm going to slack off a little bit and do probably 2,000 this year because I do a lot of duck hunting. I travel all over duck hunting. So that kind of interferes with my crow deal. But, we've killed, between my dad and I don't know, probably 500,000 birds or more.
Wow.
That's a lot of birds.
It is.
But we go at it pretty serious.
Yeah, sounds like
they
you
must
do.
not ban many crows if they've killed 500,000 and he's never killed one. That must
no,
be very
there's
rare.
not many banned ones.
No,
Yep.
must not be.
Or not in the flyway part, one of the two.
Well, Sandy, we sure have appreciated you being on here with us, and
fascinating.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it.
I just want to say thank you to all you guys for having me. What an honor and a blessing. And I do have a question for all of y'all.
Oh, great.
All right. Has anybody told you they love you today?
Yes.
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 Well, Well, guess what? This old redneck crow hunter from North Carolina just did. So pass it around.
All right.
You're the man.
That's good.
That's a great message.
We love you too, Sandy. We need to do more of that.
That's really good.
Especially us guys.
If I can do anything for you at all, just reach out and holler and make your days count, guys.
You got it.
Yeah.
Amen, brother.
Thank you so much.
Wise words.
Great advice. Okay, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you, sir.
That was great.
Yeah. So before we let everybody go, we got a couple things. So that crow call that you heard, Mike Batty from Wild Talker made that. And if anybody's interested, you can email wildtalkergc@gmail.com. And I think he said you could get like a 15% discount if you said Gamekeeper when you emailed him. But he makes a great crow call.
I would say for him, whatever he makes, it's as good as there is. So I don't know what else he might have besides this crazy good crow call. But take a look at whatever's on there.
He is a wonderfully talented call maker.
He is. Okay, guys, I got one more real important thing I want to point out. I am so proud of this, so excited about this. When I was young, very young, I always looked to Fred Bear. I just thought he was the neatest thing. What a bow hunter.
He was, yes.
Going all over the world with that recurve bow, killing polar bear. He was just fantastic. So for the last 6 or 8 months, we have been working with Bear Archery to create a Gamekeeper edition bow. And there's one laying here on the table. So if you're getting close to thinking about a new bow, look, August 28th, these things are going to release, but you can go to beararchery.com right now and look at the Gamekeeper edition bow. And it's Dudley. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah. I've held it. It feels so good in hand. It's light.
It's in bottomland.
Yeah, and it comes with a whisker biscuit and with some sights, a quiver, a stabilizer. It's ready to go.
Yeah, and also the Gamekeeper Junior bow. That's
a great one there.
Yeah, the junior and
can
ladies
you look
can
at that?
shoot it.
What I would have given when he was growing up. My gosh, 12 to 27 inch adjustable draw length. That's crazy.
It really is.
Let off.
What a great bow to get a kid started, or a kid that is whatever,
or a lady.
Yeah,
and so they can have a bow like dad or their husband. Yep. It's a really neat deal, and we're just really proud of this thing. And so August 28th is when you'll be able to order one and it'll ship to you. Beararchery.com. And here's the other thing. It's less than $700. And in the bow world, that's a great price.
Rigged out. Less than $700 rigged out.
It's a tremendous value, no question.
And Junior's bow is $400. So it's a really good deal. Am I missing anything on this? Just what a good looking bow. I'm just so excited.
It's fast. It's amazing. Looking at the quality, let's see, the weight, brace height, 6.5. Yeah, everything.
80% let off.
Yes.
And it's got her name on it.
You can't.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Gamekeeper edition. So you guys,
it was an iconic brand, a truly iconic brand.
Yeah, we'll have a lot more, but this is the first time we're chatting about it, and just wanted to kind of get that out there. I meant to point this out at the beginning, and we got so excited about crows that we lost our way.
I still shoot a bear bow that was made in 1960, so I can't wait to shoot one that was made in 2024.
Wow, that is neat. All right, guys. Richie, is there anything else we need to do?
No, I think we're good. We've been rolling along here.
All right, Neil, it's good to see you. Do you ever watch your television show on Tuesday nights when you're down there with your family all cuddled on the couch?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. So, guys, right now, the Outdoor Channel Tuesday nights at 9 Eastern time, the new Gamekeeper shows. Richie, last night's was really good. You did a great job.
I mean, we got the best time.
We do. We've had that time slot for 25 years.
Okay.
Yep.
In fact, 8 o'clock on God's time.
That says a lot.
Knows it's Central Time.
We're not the longest running show on the Outdoor Channel. We're right there at it. We're top 1 or 2 out of all those hundreds of shows. So we've been a long time in the same exact slot.
How about that? Wow. All right, guys. Well, hey, look, y'all watch it if you get a chance, and we sure appreciate you listening to the podcast.
That was a good one.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I know Lanny is a lot more entertaining than me, and I hope I didn't.
I wouldn't just say
fail too bad
that now.
But
he does have the trademark laugh.
He does.
He does have the trademark laugh, and everybody can sleep good tonight knowing that the next podcast, Lanny will be sitting right here. They don't have to listen to me. So,
well, I tell you what, I was a little nervous. I didn't know what might come out of your mouth every time you start talking, but you did well. So, yeah. All right, guys, looking around the room, if that's it, why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
As the crow flies.
Get us out of here, Richie.
I like that.